Hello, everyone. Welcome back. But today I'm so happy to be here with you to share what bullet journaling is and how to create one for yourself. So, bullet journaling is essentially a system to help you track the past, organize the present, and plan for the future in a way that you'll actually enjoy. Today, if we were thinking of that as a spectrum, expressive and productive, we're kind of going to be meeting a little bit in the middle with bullet journaling. And I just, again, want to drive home the point that journaling as a whole is way more than just writing Dear Diary on a blank page, and that you can use it to be super expressive and super productive, and also find a sweet spot in between. Because I know personally, I get a lot out of doing both types of journaling, and I know that many of you probably feel the same way. So again, we're going to look at things like tracking if we've completed a task or not, organizing everything on our to-do list in a fun and creative way. And it will help us do things like achieve our goals by sort of mapping out our future months to kind of just talk about the starting point for bullet journaling. And I'm going to tell you sort of all about how this system got introduced. But to keep it simple, I'm going to be showing you bullet journaling for beginners, which essentially involves creating what's called a key, future log, and monthly logs that we're going to be doing today. So for the monthly spread, let's think about July, since we're only at the beginning of July. I just want you to create sort of a blank sheet of paper. I already got started on mine because, time. So I wrote the next 3 months of the year, July, August, and September. And I'm just quickly in my own basic handwriting, just jotting down what I have upcoming for the next few months of the year. So for July, I'm writing down where we're going. Maybe I don't even necessarily remember the dates yet, but I just want you to start thinking about what you have upcoming for the next month or the next 3 months. And I'll show you some samples of some other spreads that I've created to kind of get you inspired. But for right now, I just want you to write down the next 3 months and what you have upcoming. And then make a little note for any goals that you have for the next month or the next 3 months. So for me, I want to write in my travel journal every day while we're in Europe. So I'm going to I wrote that down. I want to travel journal daily in Europe. So that's my goal for next month. And then what do you kind of want to keep track of? Are you currently, did you just start maybe a workout routine, or are you trying to eat differently, or are you trying to track your finances? Things that you sort of want to keep track of or you're working on. Again, just in your own basic handwriting, make a list of those things. So I know on a daily basis, I have this notes app on my phone, and I'm always writing down business ideas, great quotes. So if I'm, just scrolling on the internet and I see a quote that really resonates with me, I would love maybe in my bullet journal to create a whole spread on great quotes that I love. Podcast episodes and insights. I listen to a ton of podcasts while I'm painting. And so I thought that would be fun to have like sort of a whole spread in my journal on that. My mood, I found that really interesting. You can track things like your mood in your bullet journal. So every day when you wake up, it's sort of a sliding scale. You can say, how am I feeling today? And just make note of that. And then my daughter just turned 2. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to create a spread for all of her different milestones? And that way throughout the year, I can just go back to, this 1 page or these 2 pages in my bullet journal, and sort of make note of that here. And then as you're sort of writing all these things down, start to think about how you categorize these things. So, some of these would fall into the home or family life category. Some of these would fall into the work category. And then a lot of them are sort of like self-improvement. And so if I have, maybe I want to walk daily or read a book daily, I would sort of put that under the improvement categories. And like I said, it can be as simple as creating 2 things, which is titles and lists. And this system was created by someone named Ryder Carroll. And his words are that bullet journals help you track the past, organize the present, and plan for the future. And so when you're thinking about creating your bullet journal, those are sort of the 3 categories you want to think of. You may have heard of something called rapid logging too, and you're wondering what all of these symbols mean here. And so with bullet journaling, there's sort of a standard set of symbols that you'll see here on the left. I've actually made up a few of these symbols that are relevant to my life because we live away from my family. And so I wanted to create a triangle for visits and a sort of a squiggle line for trips. But the first sort of set of symbols here are what are called your rapid logging symbols. And that's just going to help you when you're kind of making note of everything you have upcoming to at a quick glance, look at this and say, okay, I see 2 triangles. That means I have 2 visits in the month of October. I see a dash line. What does that mean? It's a note. So plan for holiday in October. That would be related to my business. So I tend to combine like business, home, everything into one journal. If that again feels overwhelming to you, you could separate this into different pages of the same bullet journal. But again, we're using rapid logging to kind of help us really quickly at a glance track our progress. And we'll get sort of more into how this is going to actually function a little bit later once we start writing here. So you're going to learn to create these symbols. We're going to create a future log, which is a 3 to 6 month overview. And then we're going to be creating a monthly log, which is a more deep dive into exactly what you have upcoming in a specific month. So this is sort of a brief overview, and this is exactly what you're going to be working on that month, or what events you have upcoming or trips you have upcoming using those rapid log symbols. Do you want to use your bullet journal for organizing work and life? Maybe you just want your bullet journal to be about work, or maybe about goals and habit development. So I want you to write this down now on that spare piece of paper as I've been talking. What is sort of standing out to you? Or do you like the idea of combining it like I do? So I just want you to briefly sort of preliminary thoughts, like what do you want your bullet journal to be used for? Is it an organization tool? Is it more inspiration and planning for a trip, as an example? And I also want you to start thinking about a quote that you love or that's going to help guide your next few months of the year. So this isn't meant to be a hard task, just a quote that sort of stands out to you for the next few months of the year. I just showed you my bullet journal for November, and my quote for that month was, "Your worth is not defined by your productivity." I have a tendency to feel really good when I get a lot done and get really down on myself when I don't accomplish everything on my to-do list. And so that is a quote to help me help remind myself that I don't have to be, 100% productive all the time to still be worthy of everything good and great in my life. So let's just keep our hand in position like this as I'm kind of explaining this beautiful distinction between thin and thick lines. So when you think about this traditional calligraphy look, the way that this is achieved, the way that these thin and thick lines are achieved, is by using a specific nib or type of pen that creates a thin line when you apply light pressure and a thick line when you move down and apply heavy pressure. Okay, so that is, I'm going to show you in a moment, but that's what happens when you use a flexible nib. So anytime your pen is moving up, it's a thin line. Anytime your pen is moving down, it's a thick line. So thin on the up, thick on the down is our mantra for all 3 of my Intro to Modern Calligraphy series. Thin on the up, thick on the down. Anytime you see a thin line, that means your pen is moving in an upward motion. Anytime you see a thick line, you're moving in a downward motion. But what happens if you want to do calligraphy, but you don't have a flexible nib to achieve those different line thicknesses? Like, let's say you also have a rollerball pen, or you just have a pencil on you right now. You can still achieve that traditional calligraphy look by applying what's called the faux calligraphy technique. So if you're using a rollerball like me, you know that anytime you're moving up, it should be a thin line, and anytime you're moving down, it should be a thick line. But I'm using a rollerball, so my line width is exactly the same, unlike if I'm using my flexible nib, which I'll switch to here. Moving up, it's a thin line, but now I'm going to apply pressure, and when I move down, it's a thick line. So the only way you can achieve that is by using a flexible nib. If you are using a rollerball, just like me, you can achieve that look by manually duplicating the stroke of only your downstroke. So your upstrokes are still going to be thin lines, moving in an upward motion, but your downstrokes, I'll just do the first 3. We're going to create a little duplicate box beside only the downstroke and fill that in with our rollerball ink. So again, you can do this with your basic printing, your handwriting, really simple way, even if you haven't taken that Intro to Modern Calligraphy series that I teach, to mimic that look without needing a flexible nib. Although, obviously, I love my flexible nib if you can. get one. I know that they're in limited supply. Some boutiques still have some available. You can always check with your local boutique to see if they do have one. But if you haven't been able to secure one yet and you love the look of calligraphy, you can manually create those strokes. And you would have seen me do this hundreds of times, and you would have seen Chantel do this in her classes as well. So this is something that calligraphers everywhere tend to do. So let's start with July, because we are in July here. And I'm going to go upstroke, downstroke, applying pressure, upstroke, stop. So that is my first letter. And now I'm going to go downstroke, underturn, stop, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, stop, underturn. And now let's do August, which I realized in the workbook I didn't cross the A there, so we can do that together. So we have an underturn, up, downstroke, underturn, and then we're stopping. So let's cross that here. I'm using kind of mid pressure here. Downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. This is an oval. Down, descender loop. So see that when you look at calligraphy, it looks like it was written in one fluid motion. But as you can see in practice, you're actually breaking down each word into a series of individual strokes. So I'm going to start with my title, and that's just going to be key. So I'm going to use my flexible nib to create my title here. Downstroke. And I'm using the dots as sort of a guide for my baseline. So I am writing on top of the dot. So I'm just going to draw this, that way you can see it. If this was a line, I'm using the bottom line of dots as my baseline. Same thing when I'm writing these rapid logging symbols here, which I'm going to switch back to my rollerball. So for tasks, that's a dot, looks like this. And I'm writing in between those dotted lines. I'm going to write in capital letters just because I feel like it. And anything that's important, you can put an asterisk or an exclamation mark, kind of up to you. Important. Events would be a circle. Again, I'm not a bullet journaling purist, so if you want to change up these symbols, or maybe you want to make the open circle a task instead, that's totally fine. And then the symbols that I use, that I kind of added for myself, so a triangle, I said, are visits. So when I have people visiting us, the squiggle line is trips. Then I added a heart for birthdays, because I'm a big believer in celebrating everything. And I get so upset with myself when I forget birthdays. So I always make a note of those in my future log and my monthly logs. And I mentioned how we migrate tasks. And that's with these two symbols. So your X is when you complete something, complete. And this arrow is you want to migrate that. So these two symbols are to kind of help you plan for future months. So let's say in July, you said that you had a doctor's appointment. At the end of July, you would go back and you put an X through that, or you would put an arrow to remind yourself that you need to migrate that to a future month. But now we're going to move into creating our future log. So this is an example of a future log, and this is another example of a future log. So similar, obviously, on different sides of the paper. I tend to like to display them horizontally like this. That's a personal preference. You could also sort of divide up your sections vertically if you like the look of that better. As you can tell from this entire class, I'm teaching guidelines, not rules. That's sort of a principle that I follow for all of my classes. And so try it the way that we're learning today. But if you think visually you prefer a vertical layout, then absolutely do that. And then in my November future log, I wrote that I need to launch holiday. So holiday to me is, like a holiday collection for work. And so in my monthly log, it's not enough for me to just put on the 8th, I'm launching holiday. I'm going to have, dates November 1st through 7th are probably going to be all associated to that launch. But I'm not going to write all of those dates on this future log. It's sort of a high level overview in your future log of what you have upcoming, anniversaries, birthdays, all that kind of stuff. The point of this future log is to have a bird's eye view. And then at the start of every month, every new month, you create that monthly log and you take everything and you fill it in. I tend to use my future log for everything. And I always work in quarters. So I recommend just planning for 3 months at a time, but you could write 6 months if you want to. It's totally up to you. So to do this, we're going to look at our bullet journaling sheet, whether it's in your notebook or just using the blank sheet in front of us here. And we're going to count the number of lines that we either have down or across. We're going to do a vertical spread. So I'm going to count across, and I already know there's 23 dots here. So we have to divide that by 3 to create the 3 months coming up, July, August, and September. So that works out to about 8 dots across each. I know it's not exact, but again, we don't want this to feel too prescriptive. And so I'm just going to count 8 dots across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make a little note for myself. Switching to pencil first, because we know I love creating pencil marks first. Maybe I'll just create like a little star here. And then again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, not exact. This middle one here is going to be a bit smaller, but that is perfectly okay. And all I'm going to do is write down those dotted lines, create a little pencil mark for myself to separate these. And then I'm also just thinking, I don't think I want to necessarily underline my titles, but I'm just going to visually say that I want 3 dots of space for my titles. So let's start with July here. So I'm just going to use 3 dots of space using this as my baseline. And sometimes I make decisions where I might move the upstroke of the Y a little bit so that I'm not getting too far into the second space with the descender of my Y. And then I like to work on Monday to Saturday. So, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'm just looking at the month of July here, and I see that July 1st was on a Saturday. And so we would start on the Saturday here with the 1st, and then just kind of go down the list. So as you're doing this, essentially, we're just creating what looks like this, just to give you a sense of what to come back to. I recommend doing your titles in something like a calligraphy flex nib, and then maybe you do your dates in like a rollerball or something. So let's just ULY. And then just to break it up a little bit, I'm going to do my dates, my days in my green rollerball ink. And maybe you don't have to do pencil for that part, but I just like it. Awesome. And then maybe I'll go back to my around the world in 80 days rollerball to make the stroke width a little bit smaller for my dates. So just an example of how you can use lots of different writing instruments, different ink colors to sort of make it your own. And the idea is that you're filling in the next 3 months of the year with exactly what you have upcoming. So below, once you fill in up to the 31st, that's when you would start using your rapid logging symbols. Like I know that it's my stepdad's birthday. So I would put stepdad's birthday just in my own handwriting. I know that we leave in a few days. So I would put the trip when my symbol for trip was like this. I know that, we might have somebody coming to visit one day. So you start adding these symbols that correspond to what you have upcoming. Sometimes I even like to write my symbols in a different ink color. So if I have a task, maybe I'll make it green. If I had a different ink color, maybe I would make that even a different color. And that way, every time you're looking for tasks, all your tasks are green, all your birthdays are in red ink, all of your trips are in blue ink. Again, just a more creative way if you want to expand beyond the monochromatic look. And this is something, again, we're doing at the start of a new month. So you've already created your future log. So you know from your future log that you have a few things upcoming here. And let's say in the example of my stepdad's birthday at the end of the month, maybe I need to put something on July 8th that says buy a present. As an example, like something super simple that's going to help keep your life organized in the present. So right now we're focused on the present. Here we were planning for the future. Now we're focusing on the present. And then we're going to, acknowledge and create some beautiful creative spreads to help us really get creative in other ways once we finish planning for the present here. So I've already kind of took a page and sketched out the layout, but we're going to do it together here. It's really going to depend on the size of your page, how many dots you have across, but the method I just taught you of just counting the number of dots is really going to be helpful. So when I was going to create my dates down the side here, so the idea is to create every day of the month down the side. If I was to keep going down, I would have ran out of space at the bottom and I wouldn't have been able to get to 31 days of the month. So I knew, again, I'm planning in pencil first, so I knew I would actually have to split this up into 2 columns. So that's what I did. I have up until July 15th here, and then I have from the 16th to the 31st on the right-hand side here. I'll just show you an example of what every monthly log would look like. So you would have the date, and then you would have the day. So Saturday. So the first is a Saturday. You could write 2 letters if you want. So Sunday. You could do, again, maybe you want to do like more serif capital letters. It's sort of up to you how creative you want to get here, but the idea is that you're just writing every date of the month and then the day of the week, and you're using your rapid log symbols to put those dates in. So let's keep going down to today and tomorrow. I like to think about months as themes. So maybe July, I'm going to keep with this pink theme. And so I might, add that pink stripe underneath here. I have the beginnings of a line drawing down here. So we're going to be in Scotland for a significant part of this month. And so I was starting to draw out in pencil, a little thistle sketch. I might add some watercolor to that sketch as well afterwards. But at the end, when you're looking at this spread, I just want you to ask yourself, does this feel functional to me? Thank you.